Hello, and welcome back to Conquering Finale. My name is Jason Lafredo, and once again, we are pulverizing our percussion. Today, we're talking about copying and pasting percussion, as well as transposing percussion, which I'll talk about later. And yes, you can actually transpose percussion notes, believe it or not. And so let's start with copying and pasting. It seems like it should be a fairly simple task in Finale, and mostly it is, but there are some odd things to know about, particularly as related to the percussion layout. So, when you copy and paste and measures on the same staff, everything's fine. It's easy enough to copy the shaker part there. I can copy the drum set from here to here. All is good. Yeah, there's really no issues copying sort of horizontally in that regard. Where things get a little squirrely is when you start to copy and paste between different instruments. So if I were to try and copy and paste this bongo drum part here into the timbales, you'll see something really kind of awful happen. You'll get all of these notes in orange at the bottom, and this has to do with mismatching percussion layouts, which I'll talk about in a second. There are cases where they will actually copy and paste. So I can copy the snare drum part into my drum set part, and all is well and good. You'll get the snare drum in the appropriate place in the drum set. Now, what's going on under the hood with the percussion layouts and how this is working is that, let me just show you here. I'll go into the snare drum instrument here, and you'll notice that I have two different sounds here, the basic orchestral percussion for the snare drum and the Fusion drum kit for the drum set. And they're different sounds, and they actually have different percussion layouts as well. So I'm just going to show you what the snare drum percussion layout looks like. For the snare drum instrument, you'll see that it's here. It's called snare drum note type, and it's called MIDI note 60. What's not important here is the MIDI note. What is important is the name of the note type. And so long as the name of the note type matches between percussion layouts, you can copy and paste between the staffs. So in this one, we have snare drum here. It happens to be on MIDI note 60. In the drum set, if I go here, go to settings, and look at the percussion layout here, scroll down a little bit to find the snare drum. Now this happens to be MIDI note 38, but this doesn't matter. It's this. And what's really important is that the note type is exactly the same. Now, as you know, there's a bunch of different snare drums to choose from, but it has to be the exact same one. So there is a match. The snare drum matches snare drum, different MIDI notes. It doesn't matter. That still allows us to copy and paste the snare drum part into the drum set part and get the snare drum to appear in the correct place. Now, obviously, when you do this between instruments that don't have common note types in the percussion layout, this is the result that you get, where you get all these orange notes again. Now, I'm going to show you how to fix this later when we talk about transposing percussion notes, because it is entirely possible to copy and paste like this and then do a transposition on the timbales to get this into the correct spot. So I'll show you that a little bit later. But the reason why this happens is because the bongo note types do not exist in the timbale percussion layout. Now, the other possible scenario is copying and pasting between pitched instruments and non-pitched percussion parts. It is possible. Finale will technically let you do it, but a lot of times you'll end up with garbage that looks like this, where you have all of these orange notes in the drum set part that are not attached to any particular instrument within the percussion layout for the drum set. Some of the notes will kind of appear correctly, like this quote-unquote F here in bass clef is actually the hi-hat foot instrument. And so that one does get an X note head. It doesn't get an orange note head. So what exactly is going on here? Well, I'm going to take you into the Finale preferences and look at something in the edit section here. In the bottom, there's this thing called percussion editing, and it says when pasting between a percussion staff and a pitched staff, you have two options. You can either maintain the staff position or maintain the MIDI pitches. Now, maintain staff positions is what's checked by default, and that's why you'll see the B flat go to the B flat to the F. Obviously, this is an octave lower. The bass is an octave transposing instrument, so it's actually putting it in quote-unquote concert key in the drum set part. But that's what's happening. It's maintaining the staff position here, and it just so happens that these notes, these B flats, these low Fs, there's nothing attached to those spaces in the percussion layout, so it doesn't get assigned to anything. So that's what's going on here. Now, when you have this set up like this in the preferences, This is a little bit more useful when you're copying from a non-pitched part into a pitched part. So now I can copy my drum set part into my piano left hand, and I will get something that looks somewhat decent in terms of the notation. So you can see that this kind of looks like a kick snare pattern with a hi-hat, although you don't get the X note heads. That has to do with the fact that there's no percussion layout that you can assign to a pitched part. But for something like this, it's easy enough to then go into change the note heads, and we can do all X note heads or something. And this will allow us to pretty quickly create some sort of cue for the drum set part in the piano part in this way, right? So that's made possible by that setting in the preferences. Again, it does some weird things going the other way. In fact, if I take this chromatic line and try and copy it into the drum set, you'll get it. It looks like it's trying to maintain every single staff position. And obviously the accidentals get ignored because accidentals don't exist in non-pitched parts. When it gets to the staff spaces and lines that have attachments in the percussion layout, it will give you black notes. But then when it gets to a spot where there are none, it will get orange again, right? The other option there, let's go back there to preferences and choose maintain MIDI pitches. Something different will happen altogether. So now I can take this chromatic piano part and just remember what's going on. Every single one of these notes gets a specific MIDI note, right? So if I copy and paste that here, those MIDI notes are getting translated to the drum set part. Now you get a whole bunch of random stuff going on here, and still a lot of orange notes because some of these notes don't actually have assignments in the percussion layout. Some of them do, but you can see that they're kind of jumping all over the place. And you may wonder why that is. Well, if I go into the drum set percussion layout again, you'll see that somewhat these MIDI notes are kind of assigned, not randomly, but they're all mixed up in terms of, ride cymbal 51, China cymbal 52, and they're obviously a whole fifth apart on the staff. That's because basically in the percussion layout system, the MIDI notes are completely independent of the staff position, unlike pitched instruments where each MIDI note gets increasingly higher on the staff as you go. So again, that type of connection doesn't exist. So that's why when you copy and paste with that options set, you will get a random set of notes that look like this. And going the other way, if you were to copy and paste from the drum set part into the piano part now, what you'll get is an attempt for Finale will actually look at the pitches, in this case the G flat, an octave and a half below middle C, which is where the closed hi-hat is actually made a G flat, and the C and the D for the kick and the snare. So these are actual MIDI pitches now, and not holding to the staff line. So there's sort of two ways to do it. Most of the time it's more useful to retain the staff lines. In other words, the first option, which is how it is set by default. But there can be occasions where maintaining the MIDI pitches when copying and pasting between percussion can be useful. And I think maybe perhaps if you've got some XML files that kind of got screwed up in terms of the staffs don't convert to percussion notation style in Finale, and they look like pitched regular pitch staff, but the MIDI pitches are still in the right place, then with this option selected, that should be able to allow you to then copy and paste that into a new drum set part that has the proper layout, and it should convert fairly well. So this option may be handy dealing with XML files, and actually really old Finale files too. Before they had this percussion system, you would just put percussion notes on a regular staff. So yeah, there's a lot of weird stuff going on. So this option exists here, but kind of use it for very specific purposes. And so now let's talk about the percussion transposition function. So I'm going to select these drum set part right here, and I'm going to go into the utilities menu, and normally you would have the transpose option available. In fact, if you select a pitched staff, you will see the transpose is available. But with a non-pitched percussion staff selected, your option changes, and now you have Transpose Percussion notes available to you. And this pulls up a little window here that's fairly easy to use if you know what's going on. Basically, it will give you all of the note types that exist within the selection. So if there were other note types, this list would be longer. If there was less, it may only be one or two different note types in this left column. And then you have the option when you select something to change it to a different item here by selecting something from this pull-down menu. And so in this case, this makes it really easy to do things like, if you have a drum set with a hi-hat part that you want to convert to ride cymbal, it makes it really easy. Just actually in this case, I'm going to change both the open and closed hi-hats. Just select open hi-hat, and we're going to select cymbals, ride cymbal, and then do the same thing for the closed, cymbals, ride cymbal. So now I'm actually changing both of these to the single ride cymbal. And then all we have to do is press go, OK, and it will convert that all to the F line there. Of course, you'll probably have to do things like change some of these articulations because you don't need those anymore, and maybe make this ride instead of hi-hat. And you can see very quickly, particularly if this was a longer passage, it takes just a couple seconds to convert an entire hi-hat drum set part to the ride cymbal. So it might be something common that you might do. Oops, I wanted to do that one more time. So just so you can see this again, I didn't mean to undo that. Let's go to cymbals, ride, cymbals, ride. So it's really easy to do this. And you can do this with any of these instruments, and you're good to go. There's another option there that I wanted to point out. The where is it? The Preserve Original Notes option. So this will allow you to actually add notes to the particular note that you're selecting here. So what we can do if we wanted, let's do this. We're going to choose the snare drum. We're going to preserve original notes when we transpose, and we're going to choose something like, let's do floor tom. All right, so not only are we transposing it, we're preserving the original. So we're actually adding the floor tom to the snare drum part, and then we click OK, and you can see now that I've got the snare and the floor tom together on those backbeats there, which is really kind of handy as well. There's one other thing to note in here. If I just select all these one more time, go to Transpose Percussion Notes, and if we choose a note type that does not exist in the layout, you may have noticed that I now have access to every single note type that Finale defines, which again means that you can access note types that aren't even in the percussion layout, which you should do with caution, because if you choose something that's not in the layout or the sound, you're not actually going to hear it. But we can add something that doesn't exist in the layout. But maybe it exists in the sound patch, maybe it doesn't. In this case, I think the sizzle symbol does exist in this sound patch, but it does not exist in the layout. So I can choose the sizzle symbol here to replace my ride symbol, and when I do that, it will leave it on the same line. So there's no way for me to know that that actually changed unless I go into the drum set percussion layout one more time to check this out. And at the bottom of my list, you'll see that it added the sizzle symbol. This wasn't here before. You can trust me on that. And it placed it on the same staff line as the ride was previously. You can always change this after the fact, and that will actually change the notes on the staff when you do that. There you go. Now they're all in the A. And of course, we don't need these hi-hat symbols there. So just to show you a couple other tricks and tips to this, I'm going to take this bongo drum part here, and I'm going to copy it into the timbali part again. And again, we get this crazy situation where we have all these notes. But now this is actually easily fixable with this percussion, Transpose Percussion notes. And if we go into here, now you see something. We have MIDI notes instead of the note name. So this is the slight problem when doing it this way, is that it won't tell you what the note types are because it doesn't know, because it can't actually reference the percussion layout from the other staff. So in this case, you can still select one of these and select with whichever instrument you want, but you do have to figure out ahead of time which MIDI notes are existing for which bongo drum in this case. So a couple quick ways to do this. You can always go into the View menu and choose Show percussion MIDI values. And if I zoom in here a little, I'm going to see that it looks like 48, 50, probably 49, I think, 45, 46, and 47 on the lower. So 45 through 47 on the lower bongo, 48 through 50 on the upper bongo. So we can do the same thing here and just go to Utilities, Transpose Percussion Notes. And so now I'm going to say, okay, it doesn't use 49, but I know 45 is going to be the low timbale. So we'll go in here and go to World 2, timbale, low timbale. Okay, this does get a little tedious, but 46 will go to the same thing. We'll actually just make that the low timbale again. 47, the same thing. So I'm converting all of the types of bongo hits to the low timbale. And then 48 is going to go to the high timbale. I'll get there eventually. One more, 50. 49 was not used, so that's why it's not listed. Timbale. High timbale. There we go. And now we can just transpose 45, 46, 47 to low, 48 to 50 to the high timbale, and we press go. And now all of a sudden we get something that looks a lot better. And of course we can always turn off that show option there so that you can see that now you have basically a copy of the bongo drums in the timbale slot. So this will look correct and it will also play back correctly. There's a couple of other practical uses for this transpose. So I'm going to do something, it's a few steps here. I'm going to take this acoustic bass part and I'm going to run a plugin called, from the Note Beam Rest and Editing section, called Single Pitch. And what this will do is we'll take every single one of these pitches and assign it to a single pitch. So in this case, it doesn't really matter. Let's just say C4, middle C, and I'm going to click OK, and everything gets copied to middle C. And I'm going to copy this line, and then before I do anything else, before I paste, I'm actually going to undo. Command Z so that it goes back to where it was in the acoustic bass. Now the single pitch is still in my clipboard, so I just select these measures and paste now, and I will get a single pitch here. Now again, it doesn't have any meaning because again it's copying the middle C here, so it looks like it's trying to put that on middle C. However, if we go into Transpose Percussion Notes again, now that I just have a single pitch here, I only have to do one note. So I can choose that number 60 there, and we can choose bass drum. I believe kick drum is what we want, and click OK, and there you go. So now you've just turned your acoustic bass part into a kick drum part, and of course we could always move this to layer 2 if we want, move copy layers, layer 1 into 2, and you're good to go. We can do this with the shaker part too, so watch what I'm going to do here. I'm going to select this, copy. I'm going to go to show active layer only, so I'm only showing layer 1, paste, and again transpose percussion notes, and I'm going to choose that number, and I'm going to go to cymbals, hi-hat, closed, okay, and then I'm going to do show active layer only. And you can see that very quickly I've just created a drum set part out of my shakers and my acoustic bass part. So there are some nifty tricks to be had with this little transpose percussion notes, particularly when you combine it with a few other techniques, including that single pitch plugin, which is really handy because otherwise, you know, if you were to copy this acoustic bass part, let me just start over just to illustrate this. If you were to just copy this acoustic bass part directly into the drum set part, you can still do it. However, now you're going to have to select all of these instruments to change to the kick drum. It's entirely possible, but it's a little bit more annoying. So that's why it's sometimes easier to deal with the single pitch. And then one final practical use for this, which I like to do a lot, I'm going to go over to this third system here where I have this trumpet line, and this might be like a 2D horn lick or something. So what I'm going to do here is actually take this single trumpet line, the trumpet 1 line. I'm going to go to plugins. I'm going to do that same thing, single pitch. Again, I don't care what pitch it is. Just click OK. Copy it, undo so that everything goes back to normal. And now I'm actually going to use my filter, edit filter, The only thing I want to copy is the notes. I don't want to copy any of the markings or anything. So just select notes. And now when we paste that into the drum set part, we should get a single pitch with no markings and just on the middle C right there. And again, what I'm going to do is go to Transpose Percussion Notes. I'm going to select that one note that exists there. And I'm going to go to the miscellaneous category. And in the miscellaneous category is something called rhythm cues. And the rhythm cues is something that exists in the default drum set percussion layout. So this is absolutely something that you can use right out of the box, and just click OK. And it will put that above the staff, which is really nice for us. And then we can do some other things here. I'm going to apply a staff style that I've already created that slashes showing layers 1, 2, and 3 notes. And you'll get this little thing that's almost there. We can flip our stems upwards. And we can move our rests with the Move Rest plugin. Where are you? There we go. Let's move them 8 steps. And voila, just like that, I've created a rhythm cue for my drum set part. You know, and I can even do one more thing here. Note beams and rests. Let's hide ledger lines. There we go. Perfect. So really quickly like that, in a few steps, you can turn a trumpet lick like this into a 2D horn cue for the drum set part if you want. So yeah, so there's a few different nifty tricks, and all of that's possible because of this, this Transpose Percussion notes that's available to you. So, all right, so yeah, I think that's it. I've spoken a lot about copying and pasting percussion and transposing percussion. So hopefully this has been helpful. Hopefully you have a whole bunch of ideas, and hopefully definitely a deeper understanding of what goes on between copying and pasting, particularly as it pertains to the percussion layouts. That stuff is kind of tricky to get a handle on, but hopefully I've kind of explained that well enough for you. All right, so thanks again for watching. In the pulverizing percussion section, I think I'm going to do one more video. I'm going to talk about a couple of special percussion fonts that comes with Finale that I think are really nifty to know about. So come back for that video. I believe it will be the last one in the pulverizing percussion section, but you never know. But yeah, so I look forward to seeing you there. Once again, thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed already, please do. And as always, I will see you soon on the next video.